film opens with a serene shot of La Palma Island, where a tourist ship cruises near Bonita Beach under the clear blue sky. But out of nowhere, the calm is shattered as the sea suddenly grows unnaturally hot and toxic, causing the ship to sink in a terrifying instant. It was revealed that La Palma Island is home to an active volcano, dormant since its last eruption in 1949. That eruption triggered an earthquake, leaving massive cracks along the volcano's side. Scientists warn that if these cracks widen, they could trigger a catastrophic tsunami. Despite the looming threat, La Palma remains a popular tourist destination, with visitors flocking to its shores year after year. Among these tourists is a Norwegian family who has been visiting La Palma every summer for years. Frederick, the father, leads the family on their annual vacation, unaware that this trip will change everything. Meanwhile, the local geology institute, established to monitor the island's volatile volcano, buzzes with activity. Two researchers, Marie and Hauker, are constantly on edge as they track the mountain's every movement. One day, Marie and Hauker are deep inside a cave near La Palma's volcano, carefully examining new cracks in the rock. As they move through the eerie darkness, they notice an alarming increase in carbon dioxide levels, enough to have killed several bats. The discovery sends a chill down their spines. After gathering the data, they make their way back to the institute, a sense of urgency mounting with every step. At the institute, Marie rushes to share her findings with Alvaro, a senior researcher with years of experience. But when she explains the cracks and the rising CO2 levels, Alvaro brushes off her concerns. She insists that the signs point to an imminent eruption, but Alvaro, skeptical and dismissive, refuses to entertain her theory. Later, Hauker confides in Marie, revealing a troubling truth about Alvaro's past. Years ago, Alvaro predicted that La Palma's volcano would erupt, but when the eruption didn't happen, his career took a major hit. Hauker suggests that Alvaro's refusal to listen to Marie might be rooted in that past failure. But Marie can't shake the fear growing inside her. The signs are there, and if the volcano erupts, it could trigger a massive tsunami, one that could devastate the island. Days later, Alvaro receives grim news about the tourist ship disaster. The autopsy reports confirm his suspicions. The victim's lungs were filled with carbon and sulfur gases. This shocking discovery leads Alvaro to a chilling conclusion. The ship's sinking might be linked to the increasing activity of La Palma's volcano. Determined to investigate further, Marie and Hauker embark on a climb up the volcano. As they reach the site, Marie is stunned to find that the crack from the 1949 eruptions has widened significantly. The sight sends a wave of unease through her. When Marie reports the findings, Alvaro's reaction is immediate and urgent. He orders them to leave the area. His latest data confirms the worst. The volcano is on the verge of releasing dangerous toxic gases, putting them all at risk. Soon after, Marie and Hauker, along with the tourists camping on the mountain, scrambled to escape as the toxic gas emissions spread rapidly. The air grew thick with danger, and in the chaos, Marie suffered a terrible accident, knocking her unconscious. When she finally woke up, it was in a hospital, her condition slowly improving. Alvaro was there to brief her on the aftermath. Hauker, though stable, was in a coma, his life hanging in the balance. Tragically, the tourists who had been camping on the mountain didn't survive the toxic gas exposure. As Marie lay in the hospital bed, the events weighed heavily on her. She was more certain than ever that La Palma's volcano was about to erupt, and with it, the looming threat of a massive tsunami. Desperate to prevent further loss, she urged Alvaro to issue an early warning, hoping to minimize the devastation. Desperate to convince Alvaro, Marie revealed a painful secret. When she and her younger brother were children, they had survived a devastating tsunami. The disaster had claimed their parents' lives, leaving them scarred by the trauma. Marie had always believed that if a warning had been issued, their fate might have been different. The next day, Marie and Alvaro met with a high-ranking official, urgently trying to convince him that La Palma's volcano was about to erupt. Marie pushed for a tsunami warning and the immediate deployment of evacuation teams. The risk was too great to ignore, and she knew the time to act was now. Meanwhile, Frederick and his wife, Jennifer, were caught in a heated argument. Their son, Tobias, had gone missing at the beach, and the tension was unbearable. Their eldest daughter, Sarah, felt suffocated by the conflict. Overcome with the pressure, she secretly booked a flight to Madrid, hoping to escape the storm brewing around her. As time passed, Alvaro's latest monitoring showed alarming signs. Volcanic ash intensity around La Palma's volcano was rapidly increasing. Hours later, Frederick and the other tourists were jolted by a violent eruption, volcanic ash pouring into the sky. The chaos escalated when Sarah's plane, already in the air, flew straight into the ash cloud. The worst scenario happened. The plane crashed. Frederick and Jennifer were struck with panic when they learned Sarah had been on the ill-fated flight. In a frantic rush, they made their way to the hospital, hoping for answers. When they arrived, they were given a list of passengers being treated, but Sarah's name wasn't checked off. They were crushed to learn she was among the missing, presumed dead after the plane exploded. The grief weighed heavily on them, especially as they reflected on their role in Sarah's decision to run away. But just when all hope seemed lost, Sarah unexpectedly returned home, safe and sound. She had exited the plane before it took off, escaping the disaster. Meanwhile, Alvaro urged Marie to leave La Palma immediately before the volcano erupted. The danger was imminent, and time was running out. However, Marie's heart sank when she discovered that her younger brother Eric had vanished from their home. The two had argued earlier over a misunderstanding, and now, in the midst of the chaos, Eric was gone. That evening, Sarah sat down for a conversation with her new friend Charlie. Through their talk, Sarah learned that Charlie's uplifting message was what had driven her to leave the plane before it took off. Since then, the two had grown close, sharing a bond that helped Sarah feel grounded in the midst of everything falling apart. Meanwhile, Marie tracked Eric down, finding him in police custody after causing trouble while drunk. Furious, she rushed to defend him, but in the heat of the moment, she accidentally assaulted the officers. The situation spiraled, and Marie was arrested for assault. Though Eric was eventually released, the tension between them remained, leaving Marie to face the consequences of her actions. On the other hand, Jens, a staff member from the ministry and Jennifer's brother, sat in an emergency meeting, the weight of the situation sinking in. Scientists confirmed the worst. La Palma's volcano was on the brink of eruption, and if it triggered a massive rock slide into the sea, it could unleash a tsunami hundreds of meters high, one powerful enough to wipe out the entire island. The next day, Jens urgently called Jennifer. He delivered the terrifying news. La Palma wasn't on the evacuation priority list, and the tsunami threat was real. Jennifer's family had to leave, and they had to leave now. With the clock ticking, Jennifer's family rushed to the ferry terminal. But time was running out. There were only 20 minutes before the ferry departed. In a desperate move, Frederick stole a car, willing to do anything to make sure they escaped in time. When Frederick and his family reached the terminal, chaos erupted. Frederick faced the furious car owner whose vehicle he had stolen, and the confrontation cost him precious time. By the time he was able to deal with the situation, his wife and children had already boarded the ferry to Tenerife, leaving him behind. Meanwhile, on the ferry, Sarah urgently called Charlie, asking her to rush to the Tenerife airport. The stakes were rising, and Sarah knew she had to act fast. Back on La Palma, Alvaro's heart sank as he discovered his monitoring equipment had malfunctioned. With the volcano showing signs of an imminent eruption, he wasted no time. Urging the authorities to issue an evacuation warning, Alvaro's fear turned to urgency as the island grew more dangerous by the minute. The government quickly initiated the evacuation process, but the threat only intensified as lava poured from the volcano. As the island trembled, Hokur, now recovering, made a choice. Instead of escaping, he stayed with Alvaro. Together, they shared a quiet conversation, reflecting on the inevitable. Whether from the eruption or the coming tsunami, they had accepted death, their fates sealed in the face of nature's fury. As the volcano's eruption raged on, the police were forced to abandon their station to save themselves. Seizing the moment, Eric managed to grab the keys and free Marie from her cell. Bursting out of the police station, Marie and Eric were shocked to run into Frederick. He looked defeated. He had lost all hope after searching in vain for a boat to escape La Palma Island. Eric quickly offered a solution. He knew a place where he kept a boat used for diving, and he urged Marie and Frederick to follow him there. But just as they started to head out, chaos erupted. A man, armed and desperate, appeared, intent on seizing the boat for himself. A violent confrontation erupted, and before anyone could react, Eric was shot and killed by the man, Carlos. Marie, stunned and grieving, struggled to process the loss while Frederick fought desperately to stop Carlos. After a brutal struggle, Frederick finally overpowered him, but the victory felt hollow. Before they could catch their breath, a group of people arrived, eager to take the boat. Frederick, using Carlos's pistol, drove them off, and he and Marie managed to secure the boat, their only hope for escape. Meanwhile, Jens received urgent news from a tsunami researcher. The researcher revealed that there was a potential safe zone on Tenerife Island, but the safety of this location was still uncertain. The waves could still reach them, and evacuation to that spot might not guarantee survival. Upon learning this, Jens urgently pushed the government to announce the potential safe zone in Tenerife, but his plea was met with resistance. The officials feared that if evacuees were killed there by the tsunami, it would only worsen their already dire situation. Meanwhile, at the Tenerife airport, Jennifer and her 2 children waited anxiously in line for their flight tickets. Jennifer and Tobias boarded the plane first, but Sarah, determined to find Charlie, slipped away to search the terminal. Charlie had just arrived, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to see her. Back on La Palma, Alvaro and Halcour ascended the volcano in protective suits, their faces set with grim acceptance. As they stood watching the lava pour from the mountain, they shared drinks, seemingly resigned to their fate. But just as they relaxed, the eruption triggered a massive rock slide, burying them both in an instant. As scientists had feared, the massive rock slide into the sea triggered a devastating tsunami. The wave began to gather unstoppable force. Meanwhile, Marie and Frederick arrived in Tenerife, only to spot the first signs of the approaching disaster. The shoreline, once peaceful, now hinted at the imminent destruction. At the same time, tension mounted at Tenerife Airport. The plane was seconds from taking off when Jennifer and Tobias made a split-second decision. They would leave. Their only goal now was to find Sarah, who had not yet boarded. Shortly after, Frederick's phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer, revealing the location of a potential safe zone. Without a moment's hesitation, Frederick pushed the boat's speed to the limit, racing against the towering tsunami waves closing in fast. Meanwhile, Sarah finally found Charlie, and the 2 quickly boarded a plane. But when Sarah called Jennifer, she learned the heart-wrenching news: her mother and Tobias were still outside, desperately searching for her. With time running out, Jennifer and Tobias made a last-minute choice. They would escape with the others, no matter what. As Jennifer rushed towards safety, she saw the tsunami waves barreling toward the airport. But to her horror, the plane never took off. The massive waves hit, dragging the plane into the water, sinking it in an instant. Meanwhile, Marie and Frederick pushed the boat to its limits, desperately trying to outrun the approaching waves. When they finally reached Tenerife Bay, relief flooded over them as the tsunami waves began to recede. But the sight that greeted them was far from peaceful. Refugees crowded the bay, waiting for evacuation teams. Soon after, Jennifer and Tobias arrived, shaken but safe. Yet Frederick's anxiety lingered. Sarah was still unaccounted for. Far off, the wreckage of the plane was dragged inland by the relentless tsunami currents. Amid the chaos, Sarah regained consciousness, her breath ragged after briefly drowning. Surrounded by other survivors, she rushed to help Charlie, administering first aid as the waves continued to destroy everything in their path. As time passed, the shocking news spread. La Palma's tsunami had ravaged coastlines across West Africa, Southern Europe, and even the eastern shores of North and South America, leaving devastation in its wake. Amid the chaos, Jens received praise from his colleagues for his quick action in spreading the word about Tenerife Bay. Thanks to his efforts, hundreds were successfully evacuated. His sense of relief grew even more when he learned that Jennifer's family had made it out safely. Eventually, Sarah and Charlie arrived at Tenerife Bay by evacuation helicopter, their faces weary but alive. Frederick exhaled in relief, knowing his family had survived. But for Marie, the weight of the disaster lingered. While she felt thankful for the survival of all the La Palma tsunami survivors, her grief remained. And with that, the story came to a close, leaving behind a mix of hope and heartache in the wake of unimaginable destruction. So the moral of the story is, never ignore the signs, especially when a volcano is giving you major red flags. And always double-check if your vacation destination might be sitting on a ticking time bomb, because the beach should be about relaxation, not running from a tsunami.